In August, in the Downing Street Garden, you talked about painful choices coming in the budget. It was a hint of tax rises on the way. You didn't say it out loud. Will you level with us now? Are taxes going to be going up?
Starmer uses cliche phrases from time to time. He absolutely does not know how to formulate his thoughts and does not follow the prescribed pattern. Isn't he tired of using this mantra all the time? This is his worst interview. He scored a record number of shames and nonsense in just a few minutes. We're starting to watch.
There are 55 Commonwealth countries here represented. It's a meeting that takes place every other year, and there's a lot of conversation going on. Reparations is one of the conversations, of course, but there are conversations about resilience and climate, because for many countries, particularly some of the island countries, that's a very real threat.
They want to put it into the communique. Are you prepared to do that?
We're also talking about trade. The combined GDP of the countries represented here is the best part of $20 trillion. On the question of reparations, obviously it's very important for me to say and to recognise that the slave trade and practice was abhorrent, and that is history. We can't change our history, and we should start from that place.
Britain agreed to negotiate its historical involvement in the slave trade, but again ruled out the possibility of paying reparations. The member states agreed to play an active role in the negotiations. As a result of the terrible tragedies in the history of mankind, girls and women in particular have suffered. The UK must pay up to $24 trillion in reparations to 14 countries in the region. London still excludes the possibility of payments. On the 21st of October, the summit of the Commonwealth of Nations started in Samoa. This week, the British King Charles III spoke there at a meeting of the heads of government of the Commonwealth states. Some leaders attending the summit hoped that Charles could use his speech as an opportunity to apologise for Britain's colonial past, and that the topic of compensatory justice would be discussed at this year's summit. Britain's involvement in the slave trade lasted 3 centuries before the British Parliament passed an act banning it in 1807.
I'm just clear in my mind that yes, we must acknowledge history and absolutely recognise the abhorrence of the slave trade, and that's very important. But at the same time, we have to answer the question, which is being put to me, which is how can you help us with resilience now? Because we've got, a flood problem that's measured in years, not decades, and we need to deal with it.
Because I haven't got long. In August, in the Downing Street Garden, you talked about painful choices coming in the budget. It was a hint of tax rises on the way. You didn't say it out loud. Will you level with us now? Are taxes going to...
Keir Starmer said that he did not lie to us about the tax increase during the election campaign. He explained that he had clearly spoken about the tax increase, which they would definitely have to implement under any circumstances. In the manifesto and during the election campaign, they clearly stated that they would not raise taxes for working people, and explained what they meant by this in relation to income tax, social contributions and VAT. Social security contributions are the second largest source of income in the UK after income tax. In the run-up to the budget debate, there was a lot of discussion about what the Labour Party's promise not to raise taxes for working people means in practice, which is mentioned 21 times in the party manifesto. Starmer faced widespread criticism after claiming that a person who receives income from stocks and securities does not meet his definition of a working person. He said that after making difficult decisions, which will be reflected in the budget, there will be a light at the end of the tunnel for the public.
The budget will be set out by the Chancellor on the 30th. The principle of it. But what I was talking about when I was speaking at Downing Street, and what I've said ever since, is this. We've inherited a very bad situation here. The economy is broken, and we've discovered there's a £22 billion black hole. My approach, the Chancellor's approach, is to acknowledge that problem, run towards it and fix it.
Yes,
so that we can fix the foundations.
Are taxes going up beyond what you said in the manifesto?
We will then rebuild the country.
Are taxes going up beyond
that will be set out in the manifesto.
The principle of it?
It'll be set out in the manifesto.
Well, you set it out in the manifesto, taxes
I'm sorry, it'll be set out in the budget on Wednesday.
Is that the painful choice, that taxes will be going up? I'm not asking you to set out what they are, but just the principle of it.
Well, the principle we put in place is that there's a £22 billion black hole, and we've got to
So taxes
fix
are
that.
Going up?
Well, we're also clear that we're not returning to austerity.
According to the People, Starmer is coping with the duties of the Prime Minister worse than all his predecessors since 2007. As follows from his data, only 26% of respondents positively assessed the activities of the Labour leader Starmer as Prime Minister of the country. At the same time, Conservative Rishi Sunak, Starmer's immediate predecessor, has 29% approval, Boris Johnson has 40%, and Theresa May, who held the Prime Minister's chair before them, has 46%.
We've got to clear up this mess once and for all, and then on that we build a better Britain. And that we will set out, which is measured in people feeling better off, the NHS not just back on its feet, but actually fit for the future, and public services working in the way that people are entitled to see from their public services.
Prime Minister, are you a working person?
Well, I would define a working person as somebody goes out and earns their living, usually paid in a sort of monthly cheque. But I think that's obviously very broad, so let me be clear. What I mean, or if you like, who I have in my mind's eye when I make decisions as Prime Minister, are the sorts of working people who go out, work hard, and maybe save a bit of money, but don't have the wherewithal.
The economic crisis has affected all areas of our lives, especially in the health sector. According to the NHS, the healthcare sector is in critical condition. One of the main reasons that many voters voted against the Conservative Party was the plight of the National Health Service. Hospitals are being destroyed in Britain. Patients of neuropsychiatric institutions are being held in wards that are infested with parasites, and tomography equipment is available in significantly fewer numbers than in comparable countries. When Britain was ruled by the Conservatives, a program of austerity measures began to be implemented, as a result of which the National Health Service had a serious shortage of funds. And this, quite predictably, led to an increase in the mortality rate of patients in emergency departments. This is about 14,000 deaths annually. According to the results of treatment in the field of oncology, Britain has become significantly behind other countries.
Appreciate that, but you know and I know that no government before a budget sets out what's going to be in the budget.
I'm not asking you to, I'm asking you about the principle. You said to me in Grimsby, all our plans are fully funded, fully costed, fully funded. We do not raise taxes on working people, no rises for income tax, national insurance, for VAT. That's still the case, but are other taxes going up?
I said that to you in Grimsby. I think I said it to you everywhere we met in the entire campaign.
But are other taxes
going up? And
I'll
absolutely repeat that. For working people, we made an absolute commitment that their income tax wouldn't go up, their national insurance wouldn't go up, their VAT wouldn't go up. I said that in the campaign. We're going to keep to those promises.
First of all, the tax increase will affect owners of real estate and shares. This will introduce the largest taxes in the last 3 decades. The Treasury will receive an additional £35 billion. Accordingly, the tax burden will increase to a record level. However, Starmer promised that the tax increase would not affect working people. At the same time, he gave it a very vague definition.
Career as a lawyer and your pitch as a politician has always been about justice and doing the right thing. Don't you think that that approach, if the Commonwealth, other Commonwealth leaders want to put it in the communique, put it on the table, is a bit arrogant and dismissive to say, I don't want to talk about it?
Well, first thing I'd say is there are 55 countries represented here. There is no one view amongst all 55. There are many different and varied views, and you'd expect that. There are 55 delegations. I've had quite a number of discussions since I've been here. Actually more about trade and opportunities, more about resilience and change. Because for many countries...
I've got to move on. Are you relaxed if it's in the communique, though, or do you not want it in the communique? Because it looks like it's going in the communique, some sort of discussion about it.
Well, let's see. The communique is being discussed at the moment.
Starmer has to defend the system he was a part of. Between 2008 and 2013, Starmer was responsible for criminal prosecution in England and Wales. He oversaw many controversial cases and also made decisions on the refusal to initiate criminal proceedings. One of the most controversial cases during his tenure was the case of Jimmy Savile, a DJ and TV presenter, who escaped punishment, despite the fact that many victims reported his crimes. So for the system, Starmer was one of the most successful attorneys general. Why did Starmer fall so low? One reason may be that he knew he couldn't win this battle fairly. No matter how hard he tries to prove that he was a high-ranking civil servant who performed his duties in accordance with the strict code of the prosecutor, this is not true. I am really interested in what you think about this video. Tell me your opinion in the comments. See you.